Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. They say love makes people act irrationally, but in reality, sometimes love forces you to be more logical than ever, even when everyone around you thinks you're acting insane. My name is Brandon, and years ago, I believed I had found my perfect match. Lydia had everything I had ever hoped for: intelligence, humor, beauty. And our connection was instant. I can't pinpoint the exact moment things shifted, but I know we were already dating when she began bringing up a man she'd met at the gym. At first, it seemed harmless. His name was Danny. Lydia explained that he was new in town and had helped her with something small, though I can't even remember what that was. In the beginning, I dismissed it. Just another gym buddy, I thought. But soon enough, his name kept resurfacing, again and again. It started with little mentions. Danny suggested a restaurant we should try. Danny recommended a hiking trail outside the city. Danny taught her a new shoulder workout. Danny joked about the gym's policy on wiping down equipment. Slowly, without even meaning to, I began tracking how often his name appeared in our conversations. And it wasn't just once in a while. It was multiple times every week. For someone supposedly just a casual friend, Danny was taking up an uncomfortable amount of space in my girlfriend's mind. The tipping point came during dinner at our favorite Italian place. We hadn't even been seated for half an hour, and Lydia had already mentioned him 4 times. I set my fork down and finally addressed it. I told her I was uneasy with how frequently Danny came up, that it felt like he was becoming a significant part of her life, and I wasn't okay with it. Her response was instant and dismissive. She laughed, brushed me off, and said I was being silly. "He's just a friend," she insisted, scrolling on her phone mid-conversation, barely giving me her attention. I tried to explain it wasn't about jealousy, but about respect, about boundaries. I told her that when your partner voices discomfort, the answer shouldn't be laughter. She looked up for a few seconds, smirked, and told me I was insecure before changing the subject. I let it slide. That was mistake number 1. Over the following months, Danny's presence only deepened. He lived closer to her than I did. I was about 35 minutes away. They didn't just bump into each other at the gym. They were texting too. Still, I pushed forward. After years together, I proposed. I thought maybe a ring, a solid commitment, would draw the necessary boundaries. She said yes. Not long after, while we were at my place, I raised the issue again. Now that we were engaged, I hoped she'd distance herself from Danny. She laughed it off again, saying Danny was only leaning on her because of his recent breakup. He just needs someone to talk to, she explained. I told her to suggest a therapist. She brushed it aside, told me to stop being jealous, and I dropped it. But her disregard cut deeper than the friendship itself. My concerns were treated like jokes, completely invalid. I knew what was happening. Lydia was building an emotional connection with another man, and every time I tried to confront it, I was made to feel like the problem. Then came one Saturday in early October. We had just settled on a wedding date, and were drafting a list of vendors. It was a cozy day, fast food from our favorite spot, sprawled on her couch, watching a movie I'd already seen twice. Around 2:15 p.m., she got up to use the bathroom. Moments later, there was a knock at the door. I assumed it was her neighbor, Betty, who was always borrowing things. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Betty. It was him, Danny. I recognized him instantly, even though we'd never been introduced. He held a potted plant, his expression flickering from shock to forced composure. He stammered an explanation. He'd heard Lydia was unwell and had brought her the plant to cheer her up. He insisted he wouldn't stay, just wanted to drop it off. But here's what struck me. Lydia had never told me she was sick. We'd been together the entire previous evening, and she was perfectly fine. And yet here was Danny, standing at her door, knowing exactly where she lived, what floor, what apartment. The familiarity in the way he knocked told me this wasn't his first time there. I told him she was feeling better, and watched as he awkwardly excused himself and left. When Lydia came out of the bathroom, she casually asked who it was. I told her it was Danny. Her reaction said everything. No surprise, no questions, just a simple nod, like it was normal. I asked her directly, since when had Danny been visiting her apartment? And once again she laughed. She said I was exaggerating, making drama out of nothing. But I'd had enough of that laugh. Enough of being made to feel like my boundaries didn't matter. I told her, clearly and firmly, that she needed to call Danny right then and tell him never to come over again. Their friendship, outside of polite hellos at the gym, was over. This time, I wasn't asking. I was telling. She smirked, called me dramatic, and dismissed it with her usual "he's just a friend." I gave her 5 minutes. 5 minutes to prove she respected me. If she didn't, she would never see me again. She thought I was bluffing. At 2:47, I told her the clock was ticking. At 2:52, exactly 5 minutes later, I picked up my keys and walked out. She chased me into the hallway, yelling, begging, accusing me of being insecure. I didn't answer. I kept walking until her voice faded behind me. That was the moment everything changed. Over the next week, she sent a few texts. The first was calm, asking to talk. Then came anger. Then bargaining. Finally, desperation. She offered to cut Danny off completely, said she realized she'd been wrong, begged me to reconsider. But by then, it was too late. It was never just about Danny. It was about respect, about my boundaries being laughed off, about my feelings being treated as less important than her friendship with another man. Almost a month after breakup, she sent her final message, an apology, saying she understood now. I read it. I deleted it. I didn't reply. Looking back, Danny showing up that afternoon was a gift. It forced the truth out into the open and gave me the clarity to do what I should have done months earlier. I learned that boundaries aren't negotiable, that if someone keeps dismissing your feelings, they're showing you how little they value you, and that sometimes the strongest act of love is walking away from someone who refuses to fight for you. When I gave Lydia 5 minutes, I meant it, and in those 5 minutes, I transformed from someone who tolerated disrespect to someone who demanded it stop. It only took 5 minutes to change everything.